Another thing that I do is I think 10 years in the future, and then I reverse engineer where we need to be now to fit that 10-year vision, right? Listen, I think one of the most important things that you can figure out how to sell is how to sell yourself and how to sell your vision, right? So everybody kind of thinks that your brand is your logo or your name or whatever. I want to take that to the next level and say your brand is your reputation. Your brand is what people say about you behind your back.
Hello, and welcome to HR Connections. Our channel is dedicated to finding success factors of business owners and professionals at the top of their game. In today's episode of Global Achievers, we have Brandon Blake. He's the CEO and owner of the staging company, and he has a very fascinating story to tell. How he went from being a paramedic to a career in sales to owning this business. So we're going to discuss all about that today and his vision for the future. So stick around, we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. We have Brandon joining us from Texas. Brandon, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm very excited to learn about your story. I think this will be a very exciting episode. So let's just get started. I think we're going to start off with your days as a paramedic.
Yeah, fun days. So when I was 16, I joined a volunteer rescue squad very quickly after got certified as an EMT. And as soon as I was old enough, I got certified as a paramedic. I kind of have this philosophy, which, you know, your viewers will probably understand very soon, that anything worth doing's worth overdoing. So I kind of, do things, very quickly as soon as I can do them. So at 18, became a paramedic. But even before then, I was, in charge of patient care. And I did that for about 11 years. Working 70, 80 hours a week minimum just to pay bills, out there in the world, dealing with life and death stuff every single day.
Right. Those were tough times for sure, right? Because it's such an important job, right? But at the same time, the pay obviously was not at par with the hours and the kind of responsibilities that you had, right?
Yeah, most people don't realize, and I don't know how much stuff has changed because I haven't been doing it since 2010. So longer. I've been out longer than I was in, but at the time when I was in, you kind of had two choices. But if you wanted to do on the street, hands-on field medicine, you were most likely making 13.28 or less an hour. Which if you do the math, I was living in LA at the time. That's not enough to pay the bills.
Right, obviously. So I guess this led to your next career, which was in sales.
Yeah. So I kind of had this pivotal moment. I had just come back from a long, probably 12, 14-hour shift. It was the middle of the night. My oldest daughter had a lot of stomach problems, and so she was crying most of the time. And man, my wife had just had a day. And so she did one of those things where I come home and she's like, "Hey, I just got to get out of the house for a minute. Here's the baby." And I was like, "Okay, awesome. I got this." But, my daughter and I were on opposite sleeping schedules at the time. So she didn't know who I was really. And so, yeah, she screamed the entire time my wife was gone. And, that we all have these wake up moments in life, right? That was a big wake up moment in life for me to say, I can plot the trajectory of what this is going to look like. We want more kids. I want to be involved in their lives. I want to be involved in my wife's life. And we realized that we needed to start over. So what that looked like for us was we moved from LA to Kansas City. The other thing that I was very passionate about at the time was music and recording. And so in that period of time, I wrote 3 albums and scored 13 films. But I also realized at that time that doesn't pay the bills either. You're you're either Hans Zimmer or you're not, right? And a very small group of guys does most of the films that make money. So I had to look at something else, and so that was sales, right?
Right.
I kind of like being in control of my own destiny, and with sales, you're mostly commissioned, so you literally are in charge of your own destiny. And so what that looked like for me was starting at the bottom, the musical instruments department at Best Buy. If you added up the rest of the department,
Uh-huh.
they were almost to where I was in revenue. And I jumped from there to Sprint. Same thing. Number one at the store. Number two was about 50% behind me.
Uh-huh.
And then we made the move to Texas, right? And then I went through this very long period of time working for a couple of companies, not doing very well. The companies weren't really set up for scale. They weren't really set up for success. And scaling through their employees to really reach a mass market. But what I really learned in that time was what customers are saying, how to match your value proposition to what your customers are saying, how to build relationships and friendships first, and then sell solutions based on what they actually need, what they actually want, right? And the mutual trust, the friendship that you developed makes that close super easy. And so after a few years, a buddy of mine at the time was a business broker. He's like, "Hey, what do you think about buying your own company?" And I was like, who's going to give this guy, man, I was like 34 at the time, 35, something like that. Who's going to give this guy $1 million to buy a company? Well, we asked a whole bunch of people if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And we made those relationships. We made those friendships with bankers and CPAs and attorneys and all that kind of stuff. And we did everything that needed to be done. And we bought what was then Traditions Interiors, that then became the staging company. So we did that in July of 19. And then 2 years later, did it again.
Okay, awesome. So I just want a few more details, if you will, right, for that time
Absolutely.
period.
Come on.
So what was the amount of loan that you were able to raise to buy the business?
So the first loan, $1.2 million.
Wow. Wow.
Like
One
I
point.
said, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
Yeah, wow. So those friendships and those relationships that you're talking about really paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I attribute a lot of it to just dumb luck, but yeah, they really did. Listen, I think one of the most important things that you can figure out how to sell is how to sell yourself and how to sell your vision, right?
Wow. Yes, 100% agree. So this was a staging business, correct? Home staging business.
Home staging and interior decorating.
Interior. Did you have any prior experience in this line of work?
No, none. In fact, I mean, I'm pretty creative musically.
Uh-huh.
Visually, no. You don't want me doing graphic design. You don't want me staging a house. You don't want me doing interior decorating. I wear the same black t-shirt every single day. I
Uh-huh.
turned them into branding opportunities, but I wear the same black t-shirt every day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a leap, but excuse me. The principles are the same in any business that you run. Make friends with your clients,
Uh-huh.
support your clients, passionately, sell them what they actually need, not what you want to sell them, right? So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I'm a product of that, right? I come from a paramedic, film composer, tech sales background, and now I'm running a staging company, 2 staging companies actually.
Okay. Very interesting. So what kind of skill set did you bring in? And you thought that, you know what, I have these particular skill sets that I can really use in this business.
Understanding people, understanding your value proposition, understanding in the home staging business that making houses look pretty is secondary. We're not a design company. We are a marketing company when it comes to home staging. And what do I mean by that? Well, the way that you live in a house, i.e., decorate your house, is not the way that you market your house to a potential buyer, right? So we have to understand that distinction. What we want, right, just in sales, what we want is inconsequential. What the buyer wants is everything. So what I brought to the table was really understanding what we needed to say to reach the market that we were going after, right? So sales, marketing, right? And 7 months after I bought my first company, we got hit with COVID. We got hit with shutdowns. We got hit in Texas and Florida, the two places I own companies. We got hit with, real estate inventory shortage, right? So we had to figure out how to adapt our message. It's not about houses selling faster. It's purely about houses selling for more money. Why? Because the things that we do create an emotional connection in the buyer, right? And we've had sellers come to us and say, come restage the house. We hate it. And we say, trust us, give it a couple weeks. And they go through the first showing. They get 38 offers, all above asking price, because people love the emotional connection that we created for them in the house. So it's not about what I want. It's not about my dreams and visions. It's all about how we can adapt to, give our clients what they want.
Perfect. Perfect. Very well said indeed. So when you first joined the business, what kind of changes, or if any, did you bring in to sort of streamline operations or just change things around?
So the first thing I had to do was to create buy-in from some of the employees, right? Whenever you have an ownership change like that, there's a little bit of a culture shock. And the culture in the company at the time is, hey, you're an hourly employee. You're not paid to make decisions. You do what I tell you. You don't argue with me. The culture was very authoritarian in that manner. So, hey, whenever you want to build a big business, you need to create buy-in and ownership at every level of the company. You need to understand that at every level of the company, and granted, we were like 5 or 6 employees at that time, right? So, another thing that I do is I think 10 years in the future, and then I reverse engineer where we need to be now to fit that 10-year vision, right? And so, I'm fascinated by this book, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And, one of the passages that sticks out to me is that, the guys on the ground, if they had any piece of ownership in the plan would go way better than if they were just told, this is the plan, you follow these steps and get it done, right? And so the first step, when operating this company in the first 30, 60, 90 days was to create that buy-in, to create that ownership, to say, hey, I don't know, man, how do you think we should do this, right? Listen, you load a truck every single day. How do you think we should load this truck? Well, I think if we tried this, we could get more in the same truck and take 1 truck instead of 2. Hey, great. That sounds like an awesome plan. Let's try it out,
Okay, perfect. And how many people were already employed by the business at that time?
I think it was 5 or 6. 3 years ago. I'm always looking forward. I'm very, very rarely looking back, but I think it was around 5 or 6.
Okay, perfect. And what's the size of the company now?
So we've got 11 in Florida and 10 in Texas.
Okay, so 21 altogether. Okay, perfect. And what services were they providing at that time? And have you introduced new services?
That's a really great question. Okay, so at the time, the primary focus of the business was home staging. Okay. The former owner of the company also did interior design, and that's retail sales of furniture, of course, created by an interior designer or interior decorator. So one side's really easy to scale. The other side is very, very hard to scale. So the staging side is very easy to scale. But, COVID happened, and we got hit with this mentality that, you don't need to stage a home. It's going to sell. It's going to get 20 offers all above, asking, all cash offers, waiving appraisal contingencies, just crazy stuff happening here in Texas and in Florida. So one way we adapted to offset the lack of growth on the staging side was to start doing decorating for investors, specifically in the vacation rental space, right? we can show an investor that if they can take their hands off the decorating and let us do it, and then work with one of our partner photographers, that we can get them up to 40% more on their nightly rate. So what do we do? Hey, you're an investor. You just paid cash for this house. You need to decorate this house. What matters to you? Does it matter to you that it looks beautiful? No, but it matters to your clients that it looks beautiful. And when it looks beautiful to your clients, what does that translate to you as? Extra cash. So we're talking, hey, you want to earn 40% more on your nightly rate? Well, decorate your vacation rental with the staging company. We piloted that in Orlando, Florida, the vacation rental capital of the world. And it went so well that we're rolling it out here in Texas.
Okay, excellent. So currently, I want to just jump into a bit of marketing, branding for the business, right? So how do you market your company?
Oh, man. So I follow Grant Cardone very closely. And his thing is be everywhere. I mean, anywhere that your target audience could be looking, you need to be in that place. So we're partnering with the Builders Association. We're partnering with the Realtor Association. We are at meetups, in person, face-to-face, handshakes are very, very effective in this business. But we're also on Google. When I bought this company, they hadn't even claimed their listing on Google My Business, right? So there was some work to be done there. You know, Google My Business, pay-per-click, SEO, in-person events. Somebody from our company is at an event 2 or 3 times a week. Podcasts like this is a great medium to reach people. Social media, which I'm just horrible at social media. So shout out to Kalia for helping me with that. But basically everywhere that our clients are, we want to be there. We have t-shirts. We make these cool shirts and, we show off the brand. Most of them have QR codes on the back. So I was waiting in line for coffee the other day and somebody said, "Hey, does anybody scan the back of your shirt?" I said, "I don't know. They're usually behind me." And he laughed and I said, "What do you do?" He's like, "I'm a realtor." I'm like, "Awesome. We do home staging. Let's connect." And so he scanned the back of my shirt, reached out, and we met for coffee to talk about how we could support his business.
Okay, awesome. How do you distinguish between branding and marketing?
Uh, that's a really good question. And I think they're one and the same. But if I had to distinguish between the two, so everybody kind of thinks that your brand is your logo or your name or whatever. I want to take that to the next level and say your brand is your reputation. Your brand is what people say about you behind your back. And so I think that's also marketing because we know that word of mouth marketing is the most effective form of marketing. So if your brand is strong, if you follow through on your promises, if you over deliver on your promises, if you answer the phone, if you are there for people on their best and worst day, then they're going to do that word of mouth marketing for you. And so I really see them as one and the same. I mean, sure, we've got great branding. You probably have seen us on A&E's Zombie House Flipping. And if you've seen that, you've seen the side of that beautiful truck that has the Texas flag with the couch on it. I mean, that just sticks in people's memory a lot more than, if they see the staging company. So just doing cool stuff like that. But really, it's about what people say behind your back.
Okay. All right. Very well said. Let's talk about some financials, if we will. How well is the company doing right now?
Both companies together are about 3 million a year in revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are dealing with that inventory problem I talked about a little bit earlier, still in Texas. But shout out to the team. They are doing an incredible job. They are not going to lay down in a fight. We're doing this vacation rental, and shout out to Florida. They did $82,000 worth of decorating revenue in the last 4 weeks. So Yeah, we are 35%
Mhm.
over last year.
Wow, those are impressive numbers. So,
The goal is 1.5x growth every year
okay.
for 10 years. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. They're really aggressive growth goals, but hey, if we're shooting for the stars and we end up at the moon, who
Mhm.
cares?
Okay, fair enough. So, that was 2019. So, in about 3 years or so, or you have grown from 0 to 3 million.
Yeah, I can say that because I bought my first company. So, there I am. I formed an entity on June 25th, 2019 with zero revenue. And then
Mhm.
July 25th, 2019, I closed on my first company.
Mhm.
We went from about $1 million worth of revenue in that first company to $2 million worth of revenue in that first company in year one during a pandemic. my first year in business. Um, yeah, then we acquired the Florida company. They were at the time doing about 750 a year, and we've grown that. They're on a run rate so far this year for I think about 1.75.
Okay. All right, impressive. How do you typically set your prices? Because you're working in two different markets, the dynamics are very different, as you said, right? And you have these new products that you have launched. So, how do you typically go about setting the prices?
So yeah, we've got multiple lines of business. So on the staging side, we price per room. I hold the algorithm that we use to price everything a little bit close to the chest. There's a fair amount of competition in this market, but um, we buy all of our furniture wholesale. We kind of figure out what the actual life of that product should be. We do some fancy math and we price per room packages. So our standard, heart of home staging is going to be a living, dining, master kitchen, and bathrooms. Um, and then with that, we've got two packages, one that's designed for smaller footprint homes at or below the median home price, which in our market is an important distinction because in Austin, the median home price is like 569, and in San Antonio, it's like 365, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, on the decorating and the Airbnb side, again, we buy wholesale. We put in a markup that allows us to truly be a one-stop shop. The client will not have to throw away any trash. The client's not going to have to mount their TVs. The client's not going to have to do any of their ordering, sourcing, storing it in their garage. We literally take care of everything. I don't want to say what our markup or price margin is, but it accounts for having to do absolutely everything so that the client doesn't have to lift a finger.
Okay. All right, perfect. Um, So, on a more strategic level, I guess I want to know is that who should actually consider this kind of a business, like a staging, home decorating business in particular?
Um, somebody, well, I don't know that it's tied specifically to home staging. But I do know, I forget the exact statistic, but they say something like 70% of small businesses will come up for sale in the next 10 years, right? As the baby boomers who, started these businesses and have operated these businesses for years, they're starting to get to retirement age. There's going to be a lot of businesses for sale. Um, and I just want to tell people it's not that hard. It's not that hard, but the reward is really, really great because it puts you in the driver's seat of your own destiny, right? Um, you know, 3 years ago, I looked at starting my own company. And again, my personality is that if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So just like with, seeing the trajectory of another 10 years in emergency medicine, I saw a trajectory of what my life would look like if I started a business. I would always be at work. I would be in that fight day and night. And again, my family and my kids are the most important things to me. They would take a hit if I did that. So, hey, that's the difference between starting a business and buying a business. Buying a business, if you look at the business right, um, you can start off with a scaled business, and most likely you can start off with a scaled business with an industry expert that's at the head of that business, and really grow it from there. So independent of home staging, I just want to challenge people. If you feel like you're stuck in a dead end job, maybe the answer for you is to buy a business. It's way easier than you think it is.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Um, the other thing which I think a lot of people would be curious to know is about your own philosophy. Like, how do you actually vision your business going forward? What are some of your future plans? What are some of the things that you're doing right now will have an impact, say, a few years down the road?
In 10 years, we will be in every state in the nation. Um, that's the goal. So right now, people talk about, I mean, I know a guy, his claim to fame is that he was the 50th employee at Facebook, right? And you've got these massive companies, and then you've got people that were there when, right? We've got people that work for our company that were there when it was called Traditions Interiors or Systematic Home Staging, right? They were there before the staging company was the staging company. And in 10 years, we're going to be in every state in the nation. And the core group that right now is, really cultivating this vision, they're going to be able to look back and say, hey, remember when? And that gets me fired up. That's pretty cool because, yeah, just our philosophy to home staging, our philosophy to serving our clients, to, over delivering on our promises. I think it's a refreshing thing in this industry. Yeah, so it's just a matter of following the steps and staying focused on the goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Those are very lofty goals. And, with you being at the helm, I'm sure these companies are well positioned to reach that goal. Finally, I guess I wanted to know from yourself is any final words of advice for anyone looking to start a business? Perhaps, they're on the fence, they're still thinking about it, anything like that. I know we've talked about small businesses in general, but any final advice you'd like to give anyone who's considering taking that leap?
The core component to success is listening to that feeling in your gut and having just enough risk tolerance to see it through. There's a lot of people out there right now that are, discontent with their jobs, maybe just discontent with their life in general, right? But having some sort of risk tolerance, boldness to walk through open doors, that's the key to life. So, just straight up, if that's you, watching this podcast, maybe listen to your gut, maybe take a chance, maybe have the boldness to walk through those open doors.
Very sound words indeed. If people wanted to find your company, learn more about you, where would they look?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram, thestagingco.actual. The website is The Staging Co. The company Instagram is The Staging Co. HQ. Again, branding, marketing. Hey, let's make it really, really easy to find. Everything is, thestaging.co, The Staging Co. HQ, thestagingco.actual. Yeah, we're easy to find.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate that. Anyone who's going to be watching this will take a lot of value here. If they are looking to start a business, maybe even acquire a business, because a lot of people actually think that, acquiring a business is so far out of their depth that they won't be able to handle it, not manage the financing, and they wouldn't know how to run the operations. But as you rightfully said, that, relationships go a long way. And through those relationships, you can actually leverage the person who's been running that particular business and to take it forward, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So, very nicely said, Brendan. We wish you, of course, all the best. So, thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate that and wish you all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Thanks for watching. We really appreciate that. If you like what you saw, then hit the like button. We'll be posting at least once or twice every week. So if you want to see similar kind of videos, then subscribe to the channel. And finally, if there's a type of professional that you want featured on a future episode, then let us know in the comment box below. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.